on their way. They would not be going back through Jerusalem, they said. All three of them had woken from the same identical dream, warning them to steer clear of the city. If anyone in Jerusalem knew anything at all, they would be here instead of there. Besides, none of the wise men's old maps worked anymore. They would have to find a new way home. So the wise men picked up their packs, which were lighter than before. Then they lined up in front of the baby to thank him for the gifts that they had given. "What in the world are you talking about?" the baby's mother said, laughing. "For the scent and weight and skin of a baby," said the first wise man, who had no interest in living on herbs in boiled water anymore. "For this home and the love here," said the second wise man, who could not remember how to say it in an ancient language anymore. "For a really great story," said the third wise man, who thought that telling it might do a lot more for him than walking on hot coals. Then the wise men walked outside, stretched, and kissed the baby goodbye. And they went home by another way. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Matthew's gospel, in this creative telling by Barbara Brown Taylor, immerses us in a world as it is, in that world, in our world. A world with Herods out there and pitfalls, challenges and difficulties. And the story draws us through the world to a journey of Christian values and devotion, a journey that leads us both out and leads us home at the same time. We all recall that the world into which Jesus was born was one of Roman domination that demanded devotion to the emperor rather than to God. In that world, so similar in many ways to our own, the powerful were lifted up and the lowly were trampled. In a world where it seemed hard to find a faithful truth, we read of three wise ones who were seeking something. They weren't quite sure what it was, but it was clearly something more than what they understood. And it was more than what they called the disappointing returns for their earlier efforts of diet and language and walking on coals. One had tried each of those options, and they were sort of stuck until each caught the gleam of a star. I love the part where they set out from several different home places, 3 different home bases, very different places. But then as they approached one another on their journeys, they saw something that made them brothers before they spoke. And that was what Barbara Brown Taylor called the gleam of the star in each of their eyes. And so they joined and journeyed together, and they became one as they sought to follow a star. I love what that says about how distinct the people of God can be and yet become unified when we, no matter our diversity, follow Christ together. In this event of Jesus' birth, it is says that the world turns, the very world turns, that the world is changed, and that the world is never the same again. Think of all that happens as a result of Jesus' birth. Angels sing a song. Shepherds pause in their work to worship. Herod becomes afraid. Because of Jesus' birth, evil spirits are dispersed. The vulnerable find mercy. We read that the hungry and thirsty will be satisfied, and that sinners will find forgiveness. Grace comes and righteousness rules as the world turns at the birth of Jesus. As the Magi saw the glimmer of light and followed the star in their eyes, so may we. It is the start of a calendar year and a continuation of the church year. The church year, which started with Advent and continued through the 12 days of Christmas and then onto the season of Epiphany, which we are observing today. The word Epiphany refers to our seeing and experiencing the inbreaking of God. And so now, as the church calendar goes, Epiphany was actually yesterday. Also bumps right up against the baptism of the Lord Sunday, which is today officially. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that these two church days are actually quite good companions. Both tell of journeys. Both tell of beginnings, of following the light of Christ and the way of Jesus. And so at the start of these two significant church holy days, let me conclude by reading Mark's narrative of Jesus' baptism. And hearing it, let us recall our own baptisms and be aware of the light in our eyes. So John the Baptizer appeared in the wilderness, proclaiming a baptism of repentance for the forgiveness of sins. And the whole Judean region and all the people of Jerusalem were going out to him and were baptized